Hello, everyone, and welcome to That Tom Clancy Show version 4.2. Things are going to be a little different this week. I really wanted this to be a week of dunking on comic book media. I mean, with the Snyder Cut, which I didn't like it, but there's a halfway decent Cyborg movie in there somewhere, and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I thought was very good, and both of them came out this week. But then some shit went down. Not with me. Everything's fine. I mean, like out in the real world. It's unfortunate because some all-star cool shit happened this week. Things like the 2003 Clone Wars cartoon coming to Disney Plus in April, the new PS5 VR controllers, and friend of the show, Doc Squiddy's game Adios finally launched. But I can't talk about that because some more important shit went down, and I need to talk about that. Activision Blizzard and Riot Games are two of the biggest developers around right now. Games like Valorant, Overwatch, League of Legends, and Call of Duty's rule esports and many online communities, while World of Warcraft somehow manages to maintain profitability and millions of monthly active users. This week, both of those companies popped up in the news, but not for reasons that anyone ever wants to see. Activision Blizzard laid off a number of employees from their esports division, numbering between 50 and 190 people, while Bobby Kotick is getting a bonus worth up to $200 million, while a special committee over at Riot Games found no evidence that CEO Nicolas Laurent took part in any harassment, retaliation, or discrimination against a former employee who was allegedly fired for refusing Laurent's sexual advances. Now, it's important to note that I use allegedly here simply because I do not have the information provided to the committee by the third party that investigated the former employee's claims, but I also know that the number of similar claims that turn out to be false are statistically small. I'm going to start with Activision Blizzard and their clearinghouse of their esports staff. I get it. 2020 was a clusterfuck of a year that no one saw coming that heavily impacted in-person events across the globe. There were big plans too, what with Overwatch League, the annual Call of Duty events, and probably even more that I'm forgetting about. And then 2020 just came through and threw all of those plans out with trash. Now here we are in 2021, and the first half of the year is a wash. E3 is canceled, there's no PAX East, and who even knows what's going to happen from July and moving forward. But the difference between then and now is the vaccine. In-person events will be back this year. Now is not the time to be laying off event staff. Now is the time to have those people ramping up and prepping for the safe return to community-driven events. And one of the worst things about this too is that we know, based on how Activision Blizzard's management has handled itself in the past, that they're just going to be hiring people back for these vacated positions in the next few months. It's their style. Get rid of the expensive, experienced people and replace them with cheap people when nobody's looking. Don't believe me? Fine. I invite you to go out there and check out what they did when they dropped a bunch of their marketing staff in their 2019 layoffs when they laid off somewhere around the neighborhood of 800 employees. Many of them were contractors as well, who already have very little by way of benefits to help soften that blow. And as if to add insult to injury, we also learned that a clause in Bobby Kotick's employment agreement was triggered by the company's current stock price. Just to give a little quick refresher on all of this, over the past 90 days, Activision's stock price has maintained a value of greater than twice the value it had when the agreement was signed. Back in 2016, the stock price was $32 a share, and in February, it peaked at a little over $100 a share. This entitles Kotick to any bonuses he may not have gotten over the course of the past few years, even if the reason behind not receiving those bonuses was failing to meet performance targets for the company. Now, it is also worth noting that in 2017, he received a $26 million bonus through stock and other equity awards. But then again, his total pay dropped in 2019 to only $30.1 million. So now he stands to receive up to $200 million in bonuses after laying off a large group of workers while overseeing one of the most lucrative game publishers in the business. This is insane to me. It's insane to me because he's not doing $30 million worth of work each year. The thousands of developers and support staff in those studios spread across the globe are the ones doing that work. Those workers, many of whom are contractors who don't earn benefits, work overtime and crunch hours to make ludicrous release schedules, all while knowing that every year they might get laid off to pump up the share price. It's a system that demands things like loyalty but provides little to no reward for it in return. It's an upside-down pyramid that has managed to stay upright for so long that the ruined husks of those that burned out serve as some macabre support structure. It's bad enough that employees have to worry about the security of their job based on stock prices, but I have a special hatred for those that make their workplaces into a toxic environment. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised about Riot being in the news this week. They have overseen a toxic and destructive work environment for years, a work environment that hasn't demonstrably changed since the first story started breaking in 2019 or the organized walkout by its staff in 2019. Despite the corporate platitudes that they want us to believe, those work environments aren't the product of a few bad apples. They are the symptom of a fundamentally flawed system, and it frequently goes all the way to the top. Speaking of, earlier this year, Sharon O'Donnell filed a lawsuit against Riot CEO Nicolas Laurent alleging sexual harassment. O'Donnell was Laurent's executive assistant, was dismissed in 2020 based on multiple well-documented complaints from a variety of people. In response to this, Riot hired a third party to investigate O'Donnell's claims, and that investigation was then reviewed by 3 members of the board who said the report showed no evidence to back up O'Donnell's claims. This is my shocked face. Now, I admit, I haven't seen the actual report from the investigators, but part of me also wonders if the folks at Riot actually read that report. The truth of the matter is this: no one listens to women. It's bullshit and it sucks, but it's also true. Men will pay lip service to women with their grandiose statements amongst themselves about the sanctity of their mothers and sisters and daughters, but the moment any woman in question falls out of that circle, that protection is gone. It goes beyond just words. Far too many men act on that locker room talk, and far too many women suffer because of it. No one listens to them. People blame the victims. They accuse the victims of horrible shit, and all of this because they had the audacity to accuse such a fine and upstanding man of something that no one thinks they could possibly be capable of. And in the end, these men don't generally face any consequences for their actions, while the victims are forever marked and scorned for having spoken up for themselves. I'm going to make this abundantly clear. I believe the victim. Always. Also, if you're a man and you're thinking anything along the lines of, not all men right now, then you're part of the problem. Honestly, ask yourself this. Ask yourself if you are actually doing anything to help the women in and around your life. I'm not asking if you're being actively misogynistic or not, because if you aren't actively standing up against this kind of behavior, then you are allowing it to happen. It's that simple. I'm fucking furious right now because behavior like this has been allowed to continue for years. Working men and women are suffering for fake numbers in New York while a bullshit system profits from their work without having done any of that work for itself. How long are we going to sit back and let this happen? Honestly, the answer to that question infuriates me even more, because I don't find most people's answers to be acceptable. Their answers are ignorant, oftentimes just regurgitated rhetoric. There is a human cost to this business, and we need to make that more apparent to the average consumer. Look, I want to say something like thank you all for watching, but that really feels disingenuous right now. Instead, I'm going to ask you to do a little research. Do some research into your favorite developers and see if their values line up with how they run themselves as a company. Then I want you to ask yourselves if those developers live up to your standards. And if they don't, are you really okay giving them money to continue to carry on the way that they do? I'll see you all next time.